Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the 21st chapter in the book of Job. This is the seventh speech of Job, and this is in response to Zophar the Naamanite speech, his second one in the 20th chapter. We've just completed round two. I guess the round three really starts with Job, since round one started with him in the third chapter, but the structure of the 20th chapter consists of an explanation and a motive of why he's speaking in verses 1 through 3. Then he says that life is brief for the wicked. In verses, he gives a ballad of the wicked, neither the first nor the last, from his comforters, and he says that the wicked, their life will be brief in verses 4 through 11. Their pleasure is temporary, fleeting, and ephemeral in verses 12 through 19, and their death is painful in verses 20 through 29. The structure of the 21st chapter, the one we're going to cover in greater detail, consists of Job giving an appeal for sympathy. This is neither the first nor the last time. He's hurting, he's in pain for his comforters, and then he refutes each of these in systematic fashion. He dismantles his argument. He says that the wicked often lives long lives. His observation is different from Zophar's, and they are not always sent calamity. They do not always reap what they sow in this lifetime, and their death is no different from that of anyone else. Death is a democracy. It comes to us all equally, and it makes us all equal, and this is from verses 23 through 34. We're going to cover the first 16 verses in the 21st chapter, and what we're going to do is review the one that it refutes. So in verses 4 through 11, Zophar argues that the life of the wicked is brief. Verse 4 and 5. You have known this of old, since man was placed on the earth, that the singing of the wicked is short-lived, and the joy of the defiled one is but for a moment. I don't know where he's getting his history from, because in the beginning, the first brothers, Cain and Abel, Cain slew righteous Abel, and he lived on. His life continued his course. Abel's was cut short. It is an oversimplification to suggest that the wicked, that the length of one's life is a testament and a measurement and a reflection of your righteousness or lack thereof. But he also says that this bleeds into the next section, the one we're not going to review, where he says that the pleasure and the prosperity of the wicked is temporary; it does not last. That's the joy of the defiled one is but for a moment. Verses 6 and 7. Although his pride mounts up to the heavens and his head reaches to the clouds, he perishes forever like his own dung. Those who have seen him say, "Where is he?" So pride was the sin which compelled the original Babylonians, the one who tried to construct the Tower of Babel, to reach to the heavens. And similarly is the pride, the wicked. Pride is a sin and is the sin of Lucifer. That's what prompted his rebellion. And pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. And it compels the proud to exalt themselves above and beyond any realistic assessment of their true value. They think they're greater. They place themselves above and beyond people. It's a figurative that their head reaches to the clouds. Of course, physically their head does not. But perishing forever, that is no different for the wicked than the righteous. When you're dead, you are dead, and you remain so indefinitely and permanently. And no one sees the dead, whether they are righteous or wicked, anymore, because once you're gone, and you're gone for good. He flies away like a dream and is not found, and he is driven away like a vision of the night. So dreams, we do not remember. We remember an infinitesimal fraction of our dreams. We are busily dreaming throughout the night, but we are so deep in the subconscious that we often don't remember it. We don't recollect it when it comes. So dreams come and go. There's a lot more of them that we have than we have remember. I personally don't have a knack for remembering dreams, and that is the analogy that the wicked, they're here for a brief period of time, but then they are gone, and then they're no more. Eyes that saw him do so no more, nor does his place see him anymore. So once he's gone, he's gone. You can look at him one day. You're not going to be able to look at him for the next day. The wicked have a short shelf life on earth. And this is somewhat true because wicked people, whether through drugs, alcohol, or sex, dangerous extremes. They cut their life short, and they do not live healthy lives, physically healthy lives. That is a testament to wickedness. Now, humanity exists in Trinity. We have bodies, minds, and spirits, and we have to attend to the physical in order to be happy, healthy, and whole. His sons seek the favor of the poor, and his hands give back his wealth. So all their ill-gotten wealth, eventually it does not last. It is as fleeting, and their prosperity is as fleeting and temporary and ephemeral as is their pleasure. So ill-gotten wealth does not last. Their get-rich-quick schemes, the book of Proverbs speaks against this. His bones filled with his youth lie down with him in the dust. So he dies at a young age. He does not live to see a ripe old age because they are wicked and their life will be cut short. Now, this is somewhat consistent and commensurate with the old covenant promises. They had a system of rewards and punishments. This was because Israel was in a state of spiritual immaturity. And so they were promised long life in the land. Much of what Job's three comforters, or misleadingly named comforters, says is aligned with what we read of in the book of Deuteronomy and Proverbs. But Job's experience clearly, in so many ways, invalidates the premise of their archaic black and white theology, which will not categorically consider that the righteous can even suffer. They think that the heavenly justice is reflected on earth. So if you are wicked, you will reap your retaliation, and you will have your vengeance stricken upon you from the Almighty in this life. 21st verse and 21st chapter, rather, lesson itself. And remember, the first 6 verses consist of Job's appeal for his sympathy. Then he dismantles, or at least refutes, Zophar's suggestion that the life of the wicked is brief. He says that they seem to be living and prospering. This is Job's observation. And Job answered and said, "Listen closely to my words, and let this be your comfort." He wants them to pay diligent attention and heed to what he says, and let this be your comfort. Now, that word comfort is alternately translated as counsel, and I believe that's the better word. The comforters are counselors, but they are not very comforting. The 3 friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamanite, each of whom we hear from a total of 3 times, and then we hear from Elihu, who is younger than these 3. But, Job is offering counsel, and he wants them to pay close attention. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. This is a New Testament way of saying pay attention. We read that in the parables and the book of Revelation. "Bear with me and let me speak, and after I have spoken, keep mocking." So he is scorned. He says elsewhere that he is scorned and ridiculed and dejected by his friends, his former friends. He was a figure of fun. He was a proverb. He was an example that they used to chide. But he wants them to hear him out, and then, once they finally listen and hopefully what he says registers in them, then he says they can keep mocking him, and he knows what to expect. He's what we have between Job and his 3 comforters. It's a 3-on-1 force. We have an irresistible force meeting an immovable object. Job stubbornly insists that he is innocent of anything to merit this calamity, but his 3 comforters all insist that he must have some secret sin that he needs to confess and repent of and forsake, and then all his fortunes will be restored, and eventually they are, when Yahweh condescends in the form of a whirlwind to address them, and he restores Job's fortunes twofold. He doesn't give him an explanation for why this happened. This is known to the reader, but no indication that Job or his friends understand why Job suffered. None of them are privy to the heavenly dialogue in the first 2 chapters, which is so foundational to the book of Job. It is a wager between Yahweh and Satan. Yahweh points with pride to Job, his servant Job, who is upright, and Satan says, well, look at him, he's prosperous. You are a God unworthy of worship. You have to pay people to worship you. So he accuses Job of having unworthy motives for worshiping him, and he accuses Yahweh of being unworthy of worship. And then he says, take this away from him, he will curse you to your faith. He says, fine. And the Sabaean raiders and some other nomads steal all his livestock and the physical structures in which his children were housed, where they gathered to party. They would have been good, clean, wholesome fun. But they physically collapsed on them all at once. And then in the second chapter, he says, well, look, he still has his health. Let me take that away. And he imposes one restriction. He cannot take Job's life. And Job feels like he's at death's door. He's waiting for death. And the word that we read in the next verse is impatient. As for me, is my complaint against man, and why should I not be impatient? So the first sentence, the first question, it is obvious that his complaint is not against man. Sure, Sabaean raiders and one other gang of nomads stole all his livestock, all of his cattle, but he clearly felt that there was a supernatural power at work, and in this he was correct, but he was incorrect to assume that it was El Shaddai. It was Satan who had visited this calamity against him, but he's blaming Yahweh for everything. He has the same archaic prism, which is also a prison, which suggests that all calamity, all devastation and ruin can only be divinely sent. It does not consider or even acknowledge the existence of the evil one. And why should I not be impatient? He has every right not to be impatient. Now Job is exalted as a model of endurance by James in the 5th chapter, 11th verse, which bears his name. In patience, the promises we have demand patience. The best things in life are worth waiting for. But Job was clearly, his patience was taxed. He wanted an answer, he wanted relief, and he wanted his day in court, and he was clamoring for these, and he was understandably impatient by the lack of answer, lack of explanation, and lack of restoration. Look at me and be appalled, then put your hand on your mouth. Look at me. When you look at him, you see skin boils, painful, ugly skin boils, head to toe. He is not a pleasant sight to look at, and he is emaciated physically. We also read that his breath stinks. His wife can't stand his breath. So he is physically deteriorating and physically in decline. He is not healthy. He is not happy. He is whole. So he's advising them to cover their mouth when they see what he looks like. And when I consider it, I am frightened, and my body shudders. He has every right to be frightened. He was living his life uprightly, wholesomely, and with integrity, and he maintains the integrity, but he is frightened because, he thought, almost it seems implausible that things could get any worse, but he is waiting for Yahweh to kill him. He feels he is at death's door. He just won't kill himself because he knew that was wrong. He prays and longs for death as a sweet release from the bitter, exquisite agony of life. Now this is the part where the second paragraph, the Bible is originally arranged into paragraph, and this is where Job observes that the life of the wicked is not always brief, it is often long. Why do the wicked live, become old, and become mighty in power? This is a question, but in it is an observation. He's stating clearly that the wicked do live long lives and prosper, and they live to a ripe old age often. It is overly simplistic to suggest that the life of the wicked will be brief or will be long. There is no formula, there is no universal pattern or equation according to how long they will live. But they also become mighty in power. The wicked, they have worldly wisdom, and they prosper in the ways of the world, and they are dominant and preeminent in the pecking order, and they do become mighty in power. The way of the world is ruled by the wicked and sinful. Their seed is established with them before their face, and their offspring before their eyes. In the ancient world, having numerous descendants and progeny would have been considered a divine favor. Yet this favor, this blessing, is seemingly given almost indifferently to the wicked and the righteous alike. Very often righteous people have no progeny, the perfect example being Joshua. He was celibate from his whole life, start to finish. But Job was eventually restored twofold of his possessions and also his family. His wife ended up conceiving 20 children after the 10 that he had earlier. But his complaint is that the wicked, they have no shortage of descendants to carry on their name and legacy. Their houses are peace without fear, neither is the rod of Eloah upon them. Now, the word peace is not the traditional word of shalom. That is the word most oftenly the Hebrew original most oftenly translated as the word peace. This peace indicates that they live quietly. So this is more consistent with the English translation of peace, which is the absence of conflict. Shalom is an inner serenity and a spiritual and often temporal prosperity. But, the wicked clearly have the temporal prosperity, and they live secure, and they have nothing to fear. Now, the wicked flee when none pursue, but the righteous are bold as a lion. So being governed by irrational fears is symptomatic of wickedness. But in Job's observation, he sees the wicked flourishing, carefree, nothing to worry about, nothing to be afraid of. And because their wickedness goes unpunished, they are allowed to flourish and prosper without intervention, without intermeddling from divinity. And he can't understand why the rod of Eloah is upon him and not them, because he takes it personally. He ascribes personal blame to Eloah, which is the singular version of Elohim, which is plural. Elohim is a team, Father, Son, and Spirit. Their bulls breed and does not fail. Their cow calves without miscarriage. So not only are their children, their human family, procreatively prolific, but so too are their animals. Their the amassing of all these things would have been a sign and testament of their prosperity and seemingly a blessing. And Job had about, I think, you can read in the 3rd verse of the 1st chapter the precise extent of his animal possessions. They send forth their little ones like a flock, and their children dance. So their children are merry, and they are protected because the wicked are prosperous. They can afford to give their children a life of contentment and satisfaction. Their children don't have a care in the world. They are at peace, at ease, and they are dancing, and they are celebrating, and they are rejoicing at life. They have the innocence of childhood, even though their parents are less than innocent. They sing to the tambourine and lyre and rejoice to the sound of the flute. So everything is a song and a music and a cause for celebration when you are wicked, according to Job's observation. Now, neither of these are completely correct. They are both overly simplistic to suggest that the righteous or the wicked or the length of their life or lack thereof is testament to their righteousness or wicked or even their prosperity. It is not always the same. Many wicked people are poor, and many wicked people are rich. Many righteous people are poor. Many righteous people are rich. But musical celebration, it can be sinful. Music is not sinful in itself, but that's a deviating from what's really relevant here. They spend their days in goodness, and in a moment go down to the grave. So not only is their life quantitatively enhanced, they live a long life, they live to a ripe old age, but also it is qualitatively enhanced. They spend their days in goodness. Why should bad people experience and have the delight and experience of living in goodness and prosperity and everything positive? And they go down to the grave in a moment, so their day comes, but it's not always as quickly as his Zophar and seemingly Eliphaz and Bildad suggest. And they say to El, turn aside from us, for we have no desire to know your ways. So they categorically remove Elohim from their life. They want nothing to do with them. They are content to prosper from their own wickedness. And riches, they eliminate the danger and temptation of riches, that it instills the illusion of self-sufficiency, which suggests that you don't need God. You are blessed in yourself. You don't need his blessing. And Job has the opposite disposition in 121. Naked I came into the earth, and naked I shall return. So, this was not exactly fair what they were saying to him. Who is El Shaddai that we should serve him? And what profit do we have if we pray to him? I did a topical lesson on the profitable practice of prayer that opens with this verse, and then I proceed to explain why prayer is beneficial, why it is a discipline worth pursuing, why it does have definite benefits. But the wicked, what need have they to serve him when they are prospering in the ways of the world? Who is El Shaddai? Why should I take notice of him? There's not this God up there. I am the master of my own destiny. I got all that I have by my own ingenuity, my hard work, my labor, and of course your deceitfulness and wickedness. And, the wicked man, there are no foxhole atheists, so even when calamity comes, then the wicked have nowhere to turn but to him. So we cannot use him as an emergency crutch or a pinch league bush hitter in the 7th step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We have to pray to him in prosperity and when things are good and when things are bad. We don't want to use him as an emergency crutch. That's an abuse of him. We have to pray to him whether we are well. When we don't think we have anything to pray for, just thank him and think on his attributes. Prayer can do no wrong. There is no such thing as too little prayer. Prayer is the one thing we cannot get enough of. See, is their good not in their own hand? The counsel of the wicked has been far from me. So he is far removed from, the goodness. He had riches. He had this hedge of protection. He had all this stuff, this wealth, this health, this prosperity. And now he sees that it is gone, and the wicked seemingly keep their wealth. And he didn't deserve this. And the counsel of the wicked, this is an implicit chiding of his 3 friends because their arguments are going in one ear and out the other, and the same thing is happening with Job to them. But the language does get slightly more personal. In Bildad's introduction, he says that, what does he say in the 3rd verse? I have listened to the reproof which insults me. So they're taking it personal. It does get a lot more personal as the immovable force and the immovable object and irresistible force collide. And this goes on for quite some time. We are not quite at the halfway point. Job is 42 chapters, but that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.